Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a February 7th edition of the MSP Initiative Live. And no, we're not live anywhere like I was in Florida last week, but that's okay. Come this weekend, we have the big one, the Super Bowl. And while we won't be doing a live session there, I will be there. So follow me on social and we'll show you some good stuff. Before we get into the good stuff, just some general housekeeping. MSPinitiative.com. This session and every other session we've ever done available here under sessions. We'll be announcing some future MSP community block parties, which you all hopefully have run into at one point or another. Same plan for this year, with some modifications. Stay tuned as we, get those details together. We do have something that we are doing, and we're parking the bus, and we're doing 2 in-person hotel 2-day style events called MSP Community Minds, May 8th and 9th in Dallas, and Denver, August 14th and 15th. We have some people from around the industry have already raised their hand to come in as experts and actually workshop the concept with you, not just PowerPoint you, and then you maybe take a note or two, you disappear 6 months later, you did nothing. Let's fix that. Let's actually come up with actionable stuff. So MSP Community Minds, please join us if you're an MSP. You got to get your way there. Costs you absolutely nothing to attend. This is the way to pay it back to the community, which we all know and love. And then lastly is MSP Community Offers. We have 3 companies that have thrown in special things. They're just throwing in, hey, sign up, community offers. We'll add to this list, but you'll find them on MSPinitiative.com. Today's special guest from sunny Tampa, Mr. David Bellini. How are you doing today, Dave?
Yeah, great. How you doing, George? George, I'm going for the Eagles this weekend, so go Eagles.
I'm hoping that's the case too, because 5 years ago it was Minnesota and it was -15, and at least the desert's a little bit more appealing to go see, and they're like, oh, it's an indoor stadium. I'm like, you still had to stand outside and go through security in -15, and all the other stuff was outside too. So maybe not the best place for a Super Bowl, but I guess if you build a new one, that's what you get. It's part of the deal.
Look, you won that one, so you really can't cry.
I drove each way. I got there, so and I got back in time for the parade. So that's always and yes, they do grease the poles, and no, it doesn't work. And you've seen all the photos that come along with that. So, Dave, I want to rewind for a second because, you kind of took a cool journey in the sandbox, I like to call it, and of course, the Bellini name is known very well out there. But I don't know if everybody understands what the early days of a company looks like. And, ConnectWise was one of those, journeys where, that was just get in the trench, start digging, elbow grease. It wasn't the modern day, way that companies find themselves where they, they have, a Shark Tank style thing going on. And then all of a sudden, they can push your pedal down. So I love to pick your brain on, now that you've, we'll fast forward to today in a minute, but when you go back, 20 years, 25 years ago.
Actually, George, I hate to admit it's 40 years.
Wow. 40 years ago. Tell me how the early days looked like back then, because you kind of rubbing 2 sticks together and you hope that it works, right?
Well, yeah, back then, you were just, look, Arnie and I started out really early. I actually never had a job. My dad didn't like that. I went right into the IT business. And I never really had a boss. Maybe Arnie was considered my boss at some point, but he left me alone. But so yeah, we started out selling IBM PCs in the Tampa Bay area. We would put Lotus 1, 2, 3 on it, WordPerfect on it, and that was our MSP. It wasn't called an MSP back then, but it was that was our resellers of IBM hardware business, and so that's all we did. And there was no network, there was no internet, and it was all the sneaker network, where people run disk floppy, 5.25 floppy disk, and that was really kind of the start of it all. So we kind of evolved into Novell Networks, and we started selling. We were probably the biggest Novell network shop in the Tampa Bay area, and that was very, very successful. I have a little story I always tell about Tampa Bay is the lightning capital of the world. Matter of fact, the word Tampa, if you go back to the Calusa Indians that inhabited this area before, us, Tampa was the word for place of lightning. That was actually the name Tampa. So it is a lot of lightning here.
And I get that the hockey team's the Lightning. I didn't realize that that was actually a thing, that like you guys are getting lightning, like, you know, going to start powering cities with it.
Oh yeah, we're known for that. And so what would happen is when we put all these networks together with these big, thick, copper cables up in the ceilings, lightning would hit maybe half a mile away, and it would blow out all the motherboards, half the network cards, a couple hard drives. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it was a big deal, and it was really a problem. Arnie and I kind of ran towards the fire on that one. We figured out how to mitigate that problem by grounding the building really well. That's all we had to do. And we were able to kind of like put people on maintenance contracts. So we had these managed service contracts before they were even managed service contracts. We'll take care of everything. We'll respond in 4 hours. We'll restore all your data. And so that was actually probably one of the most important things that happened to us, because we recognized, recurring revenue, what a great concept. And we were doing that back in the 80s and only because the lightning was hitting us, so that's kind of an early story for us. We got we used to call it a rent roll. We'd walk in the office on the first of every month, and we'd already have invoiced $250,000 worth of maintenance contracts, I guess you call them. So that's kind of some of the early starts of what we did.
That's awesome. I think people forget that, like, you guys started an IT company, and like the software company came after that. Like that was almost, like we hear a lot of the times, right? Like you're like, hey, square peg round hole, we might need to build something to fit our business, and then it turned into a whole separate thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. We wrote the software because we had all these maintenance contracts. You had to track serial numbers, and you had to, there was a lot of moving parts. And Arnie and I weren't getting home on weekends. We were, we missing kids' baseball games, soccer games. So what we did was we said, hey, we got to organize this better. And that's really the impetus of ConnectWise Manage. It was really just written for our MSP. And then Arnie was actually a member of Tech Data's advisory council. And that kind of like, they started figuring out that Arnie had this really good software running his MSP. And then he started selling to everyone on the council and got kicked off the council because they were selling everyone the software. So it's actually, it's really interesting. That's kind of how the whole product started out. We sold 8 copies the first year, 30 copies the year after that. And then, started moving on to selling a lot, 30 a month, so that's kind of, it was never intended to resell. It was really just to organize our lives. And Arnie's really good with that whole, process analysis and kind of putting all that together. So that's kind of how we started out the whole ConnectWise Manage thing. So it's really great. We're just MSPs at heart.
It's amazing how many people don't know that story. I can imagine as ConnectWise started to get really like, I would say like 2010 on, right? Like that was like the real growth period for the company. How did you keep everybody like from not spending every possible dollar they could get their hands on? Because like spending's the easy part. Making sure that you're not overspending, I think that's the harder part of the game.
Well, to be fair, Arnie and I are both CPAs. And it was all our own money. We never took any outside venture capital or private equity money. And so we built it kind of from our own, kind of really the MSP was very successful. So we were funding with that in the beginning. But because it was kind of like, our cash flow, we kind of made sure that we slowed it down, and we grew slowly, and, we kind of grew slow and were able to kind of always break even. But a lot of that is for anyone out there that wants to grow a business. I would tell you the most important thing to do is to get a budget, put a budget together at the beginning of the year and follow it strictly. Look at it, review it on a monthly basis. If you're going over in some areas, that's fine. Is there revenue that's kind of coming from that excess budget spend? And if there is, then fine, we allow that to happen. Maybe we pull back in some other areas or whatever we want to do. So yeah, there's, putting together a budget. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated. It could be a spreadsheet, but it needs to be followed religiously. And Arnie and I both being CPAs, it was a little, it was in our blood to do that. So it was not
hard. By the way, I do have a bit of advice for Mr. Vanella there. You hired a friend of mine, Unar. Don't ever let him tell you it's your turn to buy dinner and drinks. Just, you're talking about saving money. and I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
Well, it
Unar
sounds like Dave
Unar
already went down that road.
Yeah, well, Unar is the CEO of our MSP, the one that I just said is 40 years old, actually 41 years old now. Yeah, so he's running that, and he's actually expanding it quite a bit. So we're kind of excited watching that.
Oh, he's
process.
a great guy. You
Yeah.
made a great choice.
Thank you.
Talk to me about how hard it was to get what was at the time the early days of IT Nation rolling, right? I mean, I got to think in the beginning years when you're building an event that you're trying to like make the event of the industry, you may be doing that at a loss.
Oh yeah, they actually have a really good story about that, and it has Robin Robbins in it. So the very first one, I was playing COO, CFO, so I'm kind of the budget money guy. Arnie was, the guy that had the vision, right? And so he's saying we need to build this new conference. We want to start building this conference. Actually, I got to give some credit to Andrew Morgan on that as well. He was with us, and he really kind of encouraged us to move that forward. So we did the first conference. It was just in a local hotel here in Tampa, and we probably had about 250, maybe about 350 people show up. Okay, and that was about, I'm looking at the budget. I'm like, oh, it was $250,000 loss. Okay. And so I'm, all right, it's probably good for business. It was good for us to expose ConnectWise Manage that way. But Robin Robbins rolls in with her book, her sales book that she had, and literally sold 200 of those books for $1,000 a piece. And I was sitting there watching that her go out the door with all her money. And I was thinking, what just happened there? We created an event and she reaped all the profits on it. And, hey, kudos to her for, having a kit and having it all ready. But boy, she got on stage. And then when she came off stage, she sat down in her little cubicle there, and she had a line of 200 people deep, and they were all signing checks. So it was interesting. We lost a lot of money the first 4 or 5 years, but then, we actually started charging for it. Once you start charging for it, we were able to kind of build content, build it a little bit, and make it what it is today.
Yeah, I can't. The early days of any event, and by the way, Andrew Morgan maybe kind of doing it again with Right of Boom, right? Coming up here. I think the next one's in Dallas. So if you haven't looked it up, Google Right of Boom. You might still be able to go if you haven't looked into it. Very security focused, for whatever it's worth. But obviously, IT Nation grew into a monster. It's the event that anchors the year, right? So, that happens over many years. What is it now? When was the first one? 2008? 6?
I'm going to say 2007. Might have been 2006. It's hard to remember. We did the first 3 years in Tampa, and then we outgrew it. So we had to leave Tampa, go to Orlando, because there was just not enough hotel space and a venue big enough in Tampa. So that's why we went over to Orlando.
Got it. Yeah. Well, not too far away. And now like there's 80 events in Tampa, I feel like, because like everybody goes there. But and then of course we love the Orlando airport, which at times can be a little bit busy. So of course ConnectWise was a great outcome for you, right? And Arnie, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You guys made out, I think, pretty well.
Yeah, we were good.
But like now the story kind of changes, because like now you're the guy that has the money in the bank and you're not starting from zero, right? And then like you're able to kind of look at the landscape and start to kind of invest in companies that were coming up, from the ground, right?
Yeah. So, I first of all, I retired a couple of years earlier than Arnie. And so I retired for 3 years. Okay. And I'm just, any of you MSP owners out there, you'll want to retire. You think, oh, this is the great thing. Most of us are A-type personalities, and you're going to retire for about 3 years, and you're going to get really, really, really bored. Okay. Or you're going to get yourself in trouble, one or the other. So I would tell you that, that's great. Enjoy your 3 years, but, probably should figure that you might want to come back in some capacity at some point. And I think it's a good thing. I'm enjoying myself. There's not the stress of, losing money and all that type of stuff. So it's actually a lot funner right now. But I would tell you that even Arnie's starting to spin up again. I can see him. He's a year or two behind me, but he wants to get back in as well. So I think it gets in your blood. And when I sat on a bunch of charity boards, and good stuff to do, but it just moved too slow for me. I had to I can't do this. You got to move faster. So,
well, they say, yeah, retirement's overrated. So like, clearly you live that. You can only go to the golf course every day for so long, right?
I think the best retirement is like maybe 5 hours a day. How's that?
Okay, I like that. That's nice. Or, like everybody's now trying to say, hey, let's have everybody work 4 days a week, and then like everybody's on the 3-day weekend. I was like, isn't that retirement?
Yeah, no, I've struggled with that one too, but I might be considered a dinosaur.
Hey, I'm still kind of on the younger side, and I'm on tune to that channel. But anyway, so like when you started to say, all right, I want to get busy again, right? Not going to sit at home anymore. What's the criteria that you use to like kind of see what's out there and determine whether it was worth kind of throw some money into the mix or not? Like, what's a good investment, company criteria from your seat?
Well, first of all, Adam Slutskin, him and I worked together for so long at ConnectWise, and he was really part of the big run up of building that, sales engine that really, we when we sold, we were like 240 million in annual sales. So, so Adam all along is, we're staying in touch, we're still talking to each other 3 times a week throughout my retirement. And, he starts, hey, here's an opportunity. Hey, here's an opportunity here. And that was Adam kind of coming at me like, hey, look at this, look at that, and because he was still in the business. And so he was seeing these opportunities come by his desk, and he kept on, tapping me on the shoulders saying, hey, well, let's invest in that. Let's invest. So we invested in a lot of things. And then I think at some point we decided, hey, we know how to operate these things. We know how to grow them. Let's buy a major share of something and kind of develop, a security suite. And so that's really kind of how we did it. But I would tell anyone, my feeling on what is good criteria to buy a company. I would tell you, you always want to look at something that's got, and we did this at ConnectWise as well. Someone that's some software product that's already has 200, 300, 400 partners, paying partners, not demo partners. Mm-hmm. Someone that's paying and saying, this is great software. This is a great service. I'm willing to pay monthly or quarterly for this product, because it's kind of vetted out at that point. A lot of people like it. People are, you're having, raving fans at that point. And I think that's a good place to consider purchasing or doing an investment in a company, is when they have already paying customers that are saying, because it's vetted out then. People like it.
It's not a concept, it's functional at that point.
Yeah, I've invested in concepts before and not had success.
Well, I mean, and and I'm going to kind of go off to the left for a second here. So like recently, like I feel like 2021 was the last of the like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 bubble, right? And then all of a sudden we've seen companies in the sandbox that, had to start laying people off. You see that now in really big tech companies, right? More recently. And then all of a sudden, like, it went from they were spending money like it was going out of style to, whoa, wait a minute, something's changed here. I mean, obviously the market conditions has to affect how these companies grow, right? Like, is there the concept of cash flow positive in the first 2, 3, 4 years of like a software company startup anymore? Or like, I feel like it was just, if you have it, spend it.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. The whole formula has changed quite a bit. And it's really the biggest driver of that is the interest rates going up. Yeah. The interest rates of they're probably 6% now. Mm-hmm. Just went up last week, another quarter point. So with that, and that was intentional by Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman. He intentionally has been raising these rates to kind of squash inflation. And, look, when they give money to these startups, what I'll call stupid money to startups, and then they go out and they start spending, and that creates, an inflationary, factor. So I think a lot of this is the people, the private equity companies, anyone investing, you're starting to look at a company and say, hey, can they get to profitability in 12 months? Can they get to profitability in 18 months? It's not necessarily that they have to be profitable now, George. It's more like, can they get there in 18 months with the revenue that they have now or the revenue they'll be building in the next 18 months. So it's just gotten to a place where they just they don't want it to be forever. I listened to a podcast, a very interesting one that talks about all these new startups. And some of the ones in Silicon Valley, there's a company called Ramp, which I use actually their credit cards, Ramp credit cards. And they were just given $800 million and that's only 10% of the company. So they've got a valuation of $8 billion and they're only 250 people. And so it's kind of silly when you see those type of things. Yeah, I look at that and it's like, ooh, how do they get their money back on that one? I think what's happening is a lot of private equity companies are start going back and say, okay, that's not necessarily a sustainable formula. We need to kind of have a better understanding of when they become cash flow positive. And so you're starting to see the private equity companies get a little more strict on that. And so, someone like myself, that's a CPA, I'm a CPA, they kind of have a little more faith in someone that's more financially oriented. And so, that's the questions that you get asked is, hey, can you be cash flow positive? And how soon can you be that way? And yeah, so I would say the bubble has popped somewhat. Certainly we've seen crypto bubble pop. We've seen the SPAC bubble pop, the special interest groups things. I don't know if a lot of people know what the SPAC is, but that popped. So that was intentional to kind of slow down inflation, and that's caused some, software companies to contract a little bit, which I personally think is a very healthy thing.
Yeah, I would think that there's a lot of companies that were spending till their next round, and then when their next round didn't come, ooh, that changed the game.
Yes,
there's definitely, as a result of, and I may be going again off another cliff here, but as a result of all of these companies seemingly taking the same advice of like shrinking their workforce by what seems to be double digits, could be 10, could be 20%. It's kind of changed the game a little bit on like now, today, from an employment standpoint, right? It just seemed like the markets, before the bubble popped, it just kept on getting higher and higher and higher and higher. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of people who are getting paid a lot are no longer getting paid at all, and they're on the street. Is this just the flow? Is this the ebb and flow of how this works? Or is this something different that we haven't seen since maybe the early 2000s?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, George, I've been in business for 41 years. I have never seen something that I saw at the beginning of last year. And what I mean by that is beginning of last year is really before the interest rates really started kicking in. There was so many jobs out there and not enough people to fill them. Okay. So what happened was we would schedule an interview for someone, both at the MSP and at Cyberfox. We would schedule an interview and they wouldn't show for the interview. I've never witnessed anything like that where someone doesn't show for the interview. And I don't know if anyone else had that experience, but I was looking, I was like, what? And so now when they came in, if we liked them, we would start making offers like right there on the first interview. Hey, we like you. And we're figuring we better, catch them while we can. The second they walk out the door, they might get a better offer from someone else. So I've never experienced that in my 40 years, never, ever. Now, as soon as they started raising the interest rates, it's been a lot better. I don't have that phenomenon where people don't show up anymore. People are lining up for, hey, we want to, we'd like to get an interview. So it's back to normal now. And I think that is a result of the Fed, adding interest rates or increasing the interest rate. It's kind of slowed down a lot of the silly money, I guess. And I think that's a healthy thing for our economy in the long run. And so I'm happy with it. I'm willing to weather the storm. It's funny. My son is working with me here. And so he's like, wow, Google just laid off 10,000 people. Wow. Twitter just laid off, third of their workforce or half the workforce. So he's like, shouldn't we stop hiring? And so our feeling is, no, we're fine. We're doing it the right way. We're not doing it where we hire masseuse therapists for the employees and things like that.
For the private chef and, everybody gets, like, I got you.
And that's what was happening.
That's so your partner in crime, Adam, who, like you said, was, I think came into ConnectWise around 2010, was there until 2018. So was there to that, that big, kind of growth stage of the company, Mr. Revenue Leader guy. and he's really good at it. He always tells me, and I talk to him on the regular, definitely not as much as you, but he likes to keep in touch. He always tells me that when the markets are down, the technology industry actually does pretty good. Do you agree with that sentence?
Yeah, what happens? I mean, what's the biggest expense on every single business as far as expense? It's their payroll. It's that labor dollar. That's the biggest expense. And so if you're going to cut that down 20%, you better make sure you have the best technology that you possibly have so that you can survive 20% less employees. And so most companies are trying to, make themselves as efficient as possible during those downturns. Let's see how we can get in here and save, a couple head counts by doing this or be doing that. So they're trying to make everyone more efficient that's there. And that way they can kind of definitely survive the downturn. So, and we've seen that. I've seen it 4 times. I've probably been through 4 economic downturns. And every single time, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a heyday for technology companies, but it's definitely a time where you can definitely expand your business while others go out of business.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Like for some reason, there's always a delay from the outside street to how, the IT services industry gets affected. And then, there's the concept of, I don't know, Dave, I think it's every 4 years. Everybody has a different number, but like that bottom 20% of the sandbox kind of like recycles itself, right? You got internal IT enterprise guys that come down, start their own companies from scratch. You got other people that either sell, fold it up, go back. And it's just like this a little bit. But I predicted coming into 2023 that over the next few years, we would see actual net new growth in new MSPs starting, just because of how many people are coming onto the street saying, well, nobody's coming to pay my bills for me. You got to start something.
Oh, absolutely. I think because you have had quite a layoff in the last really 6 months with a lot of these tech companies. So you will definitely see an increase in MSP. And there'll be a lot of, consultants, people, developing software, all these type of things. Now, what happens on that cycle, you're right, it is a cycle. And sometimes you're right, the mini cycles are happening every 5 years. What we'll see is a lot of new people come in. And then when the economy starts humming again and Google starts hiring and IBM and Microsoft start hiring back, what you'll see then is these people, their wife or their significant other will say, hey, I don't like the fact that you have this really bad insurance, or, you don't ever have any time off. You're always working every weekend. And then they're kind of like nudged into going back to a more normalized job where they have some control of their hours. So that's what I always see. I see them kind of exit out when times get good because, Microsoft's paying them more money than they're making on, on their own company. So they jump away.
Fair. I mean, unfortunately, you still have those people, because I think the hybrid thing, and love to hear what the Cyberfox, kind of blueprint for this is. But, like, I don't think like it seems like all the big companies are like, hey, if you don't come back to the office, go look for another job. I don't know if that was just an earlier round of cuts, right? Because if you didn't want to walk in the door anymore, that was easy to get rid of you, kind of thing. But I think hybrid's kind of going to be here to stay for the long haul. Some days in, some days out. I hate to think of the people that are trying to do 3 jobs at once and not telling anyone. Although at some point that doesn't run. We can't play that juggling act forever. Somebody will figure it out. And like, I don't know, it's a little bit of stealing, I think. But, like, what's the perfect mix, Dave? What's, like, is it 1 day in the office? Is it 5 days in the office? Is it 4-day work weeks? Like, what seems to be working for you guys?
Well, I kind of followed. Look, I always wanted to have some of us in the office all the time. I mean, when you have young employees, how are they going to learn when they right out of college, they go work from home? I mean, you got to orient them to business, their career. And so what we've come down to is a nice hybrid solution where we come in on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay, so Tuesday and Friday are at home. That's been very successful for us so far. We're happy with it. We recognize that, good quality employees can get a lot of work done at home, but, certainly it's important for everyone to get together. We're humans. We got to get together and be together. This isn't just about work. It's about, a career and, career planning. And then really we enjoy being around each other. So I think it's important that everyone, get together weekly, and that's how we do. We're definitely coming to an office on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We like that. We reserve the right to potentially go back and come back on Fridays as well. Just depends on how we feel about it. Right now, we feel like we're pretty efficient group the way we are. Everyone seems to like it a lot. And I think we're going to stick with this for right now. But we'll call days. Hey, Friday was supposed to be a day we were going to be out of the office, but it's the last day of the month. We all want to come in together on the last day of the month. So we'll actually come in some extra days if we kind of collectively choose to do it. But that's kind of how we're doing it. I can tell you that I actually tried to hire some accountants, and they basically said, oh, I can't work remote. Yeah, I don't want the job. So I am getting that especially from older, more talented workforce. They're saying, I want to work from home. And then, my response on that is, well, I kind of want you to be in here. We have a lot of young people, and, we need to help them career path. And we can't do that when they're remote, or at least I don't know how to do that when they're remote. So we do try to get people in if they're not really a good fit, if they want to work from home.
So let's hear, so we created Cyberfox. I love you guys always pick a mascot. The first it was the owl, now it's the fox. And I already saw the big.
But by the way, that's Arnie Bellini. He was the one that taught me you always need to have some type of mascot.
Yeah, I got the eagle. That's fine. I'm going to go to my team, win the Super Bowl, but I don't have a mascot here.
Hey.
With that being said, so we picked Cyberfox, got cool name. So the foundation two pieces of Cyberfox were existing solutions that were out there, right? Let's hear about how you put those companies together and how it looks now as a combined, kind of company offering.
Well, again, Adam Slutskin really was the one that kind of was the impetus for kind of forming Cyberfox. And, he was an early investor in Auto Elevate. So Auto Elevate and then Password Boss. Adam was actually an early investor in Auto Elevate. So he kind of had a front row seat on what was going on and, their growth. And so he kind of indicated, hey, they look like they need to do, they were looking for the next stage of growth. They knew they had a nice little, a good little security product, which it is. And they needed to get to that next level. And, with actually my operations understanding and finance, and then Adam's, incredible sales leader, we just felt like, oh, we could definitely take this to the next level. Same thing with Password Boss. We saw a company that had some a good fit. It's something that's needed. Anyone that, all small businesses over the next 10 years probably need to become SOC 2 compliant. Okay. Everyone's going to have to get, all the security certifications. Why? If you want to do any work with a government or anywhere along the supply chain, the military or anything else, you're going to have to get SOC 2 compliant. It's going to become, if you don't do it, you're opening yourself up for too much liability. So as everyone has to do this, one of the things you have to do to be SOC 2 compliant is you got to have a password manager, and it can't be Google or Apple. It's got to be a real password manager. So we feel like we're really good with that. And then of course, Auto Elevate is a PAM, a permission access management, or what we call least privilege. We're trying to get everyone down to the least privileges they need to keep everything secure. So we've had a lot of success with both products in the sense that, these really, really start keeping, they're all things that help you become SOC 2 compliant. So we like that we're in the right place at the right time in that way.
So now you have this, kind of two-leg offering, right, on the security, and, obviously very channel focused, right? You guys came out of MSP land, IT land, how the cookie crumbles there. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot more coming. Is there anything you can share right now, or not quite yet?
Probably not quite yet, but I mean, I know we have some different products that we're going to roll out. We're going to look, because we're from the MSP space, and I still own an MSP for 41 years now. I know what that end customer, the MSP's customer, wants, because I'm dealing with it at my MSP practice. And they're willing to pay, okay, $25, maybe $40 extra a month for all this security that they need. They're not willing to pay an additional $200 a month. okay, per employee. And so we're all selling to small businesses. We've got to make this stuff affordable for a small business. So our mantra is, well, let's build products, let's get products that are cover 80-90% of the coverage that a big, maybe a CyberArk or a Beyond Trust, someone like that, who's really in that Fortune 500 space, we're going to do 90% of what they can do at 1/10 the price. And that's kind of our concept. We'll do 90% of what they're doing at 1/10 the price. So that's important. And we need to make sure that we feel like the small business sector is really becoming really exposed to the cyber criminals out there, because they all had to go home for COVID. A lot of them can't get their employees back. So everyone is remote now. And that's really, the digital landscape is so far flung now that it's a lot of threats now that can be, they're exposed. They're no longer behind the firewall, under the roof. And so we really feel like we're in the right place at the right time. But we have a good price point. So we will be rolling out some other products too. I mean, some of this stuff is, we have a phishing product that we're going to be coming out with soon. We feel like we're going to have it all under one umbrella, so it will make it a little easier. We have a DNS product that we're going to be rolling out as well. So, these are some products that we feel like will fit the suite all together really well. And again, we're trying to be inexpensive for small, medium-sized business. We don't feel like we're a good fit necessarily for anyone that's a public company. All right. So that we're really out there taking care of that SMB and the MSPs that service them.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, obviously, when you've already seen the blueprint work once, right, you can kind of adapt it to, modern times. If you were to think back to how you've put this company together versus, how ConnectWise ultimately formed, I know you had some acquisitions on the ConnectWise side as well, but is there anything that seems similar in, I know the times were different, but, or were they completely different experiences?
Well, what the interesting part with putting a business together now is there's a lot more tools to put a business together with a lot less employees. I mean, it's just easier because you have all these great tools out there, that you can leverage. You can leverage, I have to buy, $1 million worth of hardware. Now you just stick your stuff out on the cloud. So I would say, when we built ConnectWise and we started saying, oh, we got to do some, cloud-based product, Amazon was too expensive. So we built our own cloud in the beginning. As Amazon came down, we put it on the Amazon cloud. But now you come out and wow, I don't have to buy $250,000 of hardware and servers to start this business. So I say that's a big difference. And so a lot of the tools that are out there are just make it a lot easier to be successful, I think. So I like that part of it. I think that really helps American business, by the way, because I think we've done a much better job than Europe or anywhere else. And we have a lot better, the depth of technology that's been built into all businesses in the United States is so much better than Europe. And I was in Europe for quite a long time, and I think we were just about 5 years ahead of them, just always integrating PCs, technology, servers, software, everything into our businesses. Now that's exposed us a little more now too, because now that we've built all this technology in the business, now we've got to, protect it with cybersecurity.
I want to zoom out for a second, because it's hard to ignore that, like a lot of the big players have kind of like gobbled up a lot of other guys out there, right? So like, if you look at the MSP IT sandbox, which is really a sub industry of like technology as a whole, it shrunk a little bit from a vendor standpoint, right? I mean, There's new guys coming up, Cyberfox, one of those, but like, how do you compete with the guy that seemingly has unlimited money coming out of the bank?
Well, I mean, I think this is no different than the MSPs. I mean, do the MSPs have to go against IBM? No, they run circles around IBM, right? Why? Because they're just nimble and quick, and it's a SWAT team. And in some ways, we're the same way. I mean, it's kind of like the way we can respond to things is exponentially faster than a big guy with deep pockets. And so, look, I mean, even at ConnectWise, I remember when we were selling ConnectWise Manage, you know what we were worried about? The biggest competitor we were worried about was Microsoft CRM. We figured, oh, Microsoft CRM is going to just eat our lunch. They're going to completely make us disappear. And that never happened because why? They never never created the niche market that we created. You know, they were so broad in their, you know, what they were trying to sell to. And it took so long to install that application. So it was just, and it's the same way now. It's like we can kind of really focus on a smaller patch to really focus in and be the best we can in our space. And so I think that still holds true now. And so that never concerns me when you have a bigger player that you're competing against, because I just think we can kind of iterate quicker than them. And by the way, if we get big like that, we'll have the same problem.
No, fair. Do you think, you know, flipping, you know, because again, coming back to the fact you still have an MSP, right? You know, from that chair, do you think the MSP industry is already saturated to the point where there's just not a lot of net new companies that they can service, or is that a myth?
Well, I think it's a myth because I think you're seeing a lot more. And when I lived in London for about 4 years, you know, building the ConnectWise office out there, and I saw a lot more. When you're living in London, you're getting to see these MSPs that are working in big companies, and so they tend to be about 4 or 5 years ahead of the rest of the MSPs that are in tertiary cities, secondary cities. So what I was seeing was like they were doing co-managed IT all the time, and it was just a trend where I think you're going to continue to see that. Is you're going to see a lot more. Now, the security is creating a little bit of a concern for that. Having vendors that are in your IT department can be a little daunting. But you know, if you get all your security certs and you follow best practices, a co-managed IT situation is here to stay. I just feel like that's becoming more and more a reality, where us MSPs are coming in and helping out in specialty areas with, you know, someone like a Jaguar Motors. We're seeing that. We're actually seeing that with our MSP. We're doing some stuff with Hyundai. You know, so obviously they've got a giant IT department, but we're going to, you know, help them with some security pieces. And that's the MSP, not Cyberfox. So we're going to help them with some of those things to, you know, we just have some expertise that they don't have, and they're recognizing that. They're not intimidated by that anymore. Okay. And we're seeing a lot of IT departments that are understaffed and they need the help of an MSP. So I don't agree with that. Now, I do think you're going to have to, you know, be a little more sophisticated to get into these, you know, larger co-managed space. But small businesses are going to need more and more IT as they evolve for the next couple of decades and forever, right? So I don't see that ever happening. Now, certain things like selling a PC, sure. I mean, we're probably not going to sell a PC anymore. We're going to sell them a virtual desktop on Azure. You know, that's kind of what you'll start seeing. Why? God, it's $15 a month. It does everything the same way, and I can have it anywhere. So you're definitely going to see some of the products that are under roof are going away. So you better get good at, you know, you better get you guys all trained up in Amazon and Azure and spinning servers up there. So it just changes. And that's how it's always been over 40 years. You know, it just changes. You know, we were selling fax machines once upon a time. All right.
They're still around, Dave. It's a technology that won't die.
Lawyers.
Doctors and lawyers and insurance companies. So as we're getting towards the end of this, guys, if you guys have questions, I'm going to definitely open this up and love to hear your feedback. But, you know, Dave, big picture outlook on the industry. Obviously, you've made pretty heavy investment in Cyberfox. You and Adam, tag team duo again, making it happen. I know you guys have gone from, how many employees do you even have now? I feel like you're hiring every other day.
Yeah, we're up to like 65 now.
So look at that, just like that. 65 employees, a lot different than 1,000, I'm sure.
Believe me, 1,000 was a lot.
Big picture outlook. Obviously, you feel bullish that this technology industry is going to continue to grow. IT and MSP service provider land is going to continue to grow. Obviously, security is where you planted your flag. Doesn't seem like there's any end in sight. That's always going to be, seems on an upward trajectory. If you were to give any advice to the greater community out there, would you tell them to batten down the hatches and like just kind of bide their time to get through this period? Or do you think that this is a good time to go out there and try and grow?
Well, look, if you've got some money in the bank and you can afford to take some chances, these are the moments, the zig, I think Adam referred to you want to zig when they zag. This is that moment, it is a little bit of a downturn there. Maybe this is the moment to go out and buy your competitor that's hurting a little bit, or, kind of ingest them. Let's call it that. You don't have to buy them. It's not a bad time to do that. Okay. I think that if you've got some maturity in your business, you should try to expand a little bit here. Don't be afraid, because this is going to be, something that only lasts probably a year. The United States is not going to do nearly as bad as Europe, India, China. They're going to have a lot more downturn that we've had. So I would say we're in a good position. And if you can afford to, this is a time to expand a little bit. It's okay. You'll reap benefits, 3 or 4 years from now if you do. So that would be my point. Look, Arnie and I's dad worked for IBM. And what he did as a business leader back in the 80s, all of us are doing 3 times as much work as what he did. Why? Not because we're better than him. It's just because we have all this technology. We can get 3x done. Okay. That is an incredible efficiency gain over a 40-year period. Okay. And so now the downside with that is that technology has to be maintained and kept up to date and secured. And so that's our job as MSPs, to make sure that we keep on doing that for our SMB customers and even co-managed customers. So that's my take on it. Is this is not a time to be timid. If you feel like, if you're losing money, yeah, you need to cut the fat, get down to, profitability. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys, here's your chance. This guy was behind the scenes. Hopefully, it's a question that, or a comment that makes sense, but, Keith Nelson, don't worry. I know who you're betting to win the Super Bowl now that San Francisco lost.
San Francisco was only because my son, who played college football, is a 49er fan. And if you get a full ride with a 2.0 GPA, he's a big dude. So I just have to listen to him.
Okay. Well, yeah. Tell him we're sorry, but not really.
My question really comes down to, one of the things I see going on is a salary correction in the business. I have guys walk in that, they're going like, I was making the X, you're going like, you were overpaid to sit there. That's well beyond your skill set. And so, I think, and I was just wondering, David's comments on it, some of it's a salary correction. And then when it comes to, what he was talking about, security doesn't scale downward very well. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people used to think there was an IT guy, just a guy you can do your database, your security, fix the printer. There's no IT guy. And so security is such an expensive, specialized area that very few people really have the skill set in, that I don't think that scales downward even for, 500 unit size businesses. And I was just wondering his comment on that as well.
Yeah. So the salary thing, yeah, I definitely, we budgeted to kind of keep up with inflation. We felt like that's something we had to do. So there's going to be, that's a 1-by-1 situation with, look, you got existing employees. You don't want them to go anywhere else. You got to kind of feel that out as you do it. Certainly new people coming in, I am definitely seeing a downward push on that. It's not as high as it used to be. Okay. So just in the last 6 months. So that's the good news. Okay. But, look, I'm one of my principles over the 40 years has been, I don't like turnover. I'm not a big turnover guy. I want to keep the same people because they typically they know what I'm thinking. They can answer, they can end my sentences for me. So I think that's very important to keep people, not to turn them over. I'm not a big turnover guy. So in that sense, I want to try to preserve people. So it makes the world a lot easier if I don't have to rehire all the time. So to the other question about security, does it go downward? No, I think that's sort of the goal we're trying to solve for is, if you install something like a CyberArk or a Beyond Trust, we are seeing that's like $200,000 implementation. It's really, really heavy. Okay. And so certainly a small business can't do that. So we're definitely trying to make easy tools. Auto Elevate is one of those. This thing can install really quick and start working within a week. It's not, and it's so light in the sense that, but it does so much, basically is riding on user access control and, putting everyone down on standard rights, and we invoke on the user access control, and then that's it. And so it really is simple and easy to use. So you're right. It's a little harder for small businesses to get secure because it's kind of daunting. There's probably 30, 25 different solutions you need out there to be really secure. And that's a lot. And so that's why we're trying to make a suite of at least 6 of them.
All right.
6 of them.
6. They got 2.
It's
4
the
more.
number 10. Yeah. 6, 5.
Question.
They gotta be easy. They gotta be easy and inexpensive. That's our rule. Okay. Easy and inexpensive.
I'm curious, David. Auto Elevate comes. My name's Creekor. I'm in California. There's this FTC push for regulations coming up for specific verticals, and I appreciate the mention of this is a little bit of a slower downturn maybe this year. What's like the bigger, higher picture of things that you see? I mean, what's there's the buzzword Chat GPT, that's hot right now. I mean, is that going to take things all the way to a whole nother level? What outside the box should we be looking at, thinking about?
That's really interesting. I'm on the board of a lot of these smaller startups. So on our board meetings, we've actually been talking about, really open AI, I think is, a lot of these things like Chat GPT is based on open AI. Open AI just got, like a $10 billion investment or with Microsoft, or Microsoft's talking about giving them $10 billion more dollars. Okay. So they recognize that they want to make sure that they're in the middle of that whole thing, because if you take the whole Azure, cloud, and if you start putting some type of artificial intelligence into it, that's a game changer. And that's like probably the next great thing, probably over the next decade. Really, artificial intelligence has recently, only in the last 6 months, taken a leap forward. You have these incremental increases, but in the last 6 months, it has significantly increased. They've solved some riddles. Okay, so you're seeing all this incredible stuff. Like a lot of it is, all the graphics you want to make for all these virtual worlds. Well, you're seeing things like Dolly, incredible graphics you can make with, a 20-word text statement. So what we're seeing though is all this stuff is going to be applied into business as time goes on. It's hard to figure out where it is going to, where it's going to be applied. It's like when they made the combustion engine, when they made the engine, it probably took another 50 years for them to start. Oh, well, let's put it here. Oh, let's put a little engine here. Oh, we can put an engine here. And, they can, it takes a while to kind of figure out, where will I put this artificial intelligence? Now, stay tuned. I think you're going to see probably some type of MSP trade show for artificial intelligence. I wouldn't be surprised at it.
There's a scary part to that. There's an old saying we used to say in education: you feed all the pigs from the same trough, they get fat. And so when you start making this consolidated source of single knowledge or single brain, that's a little concerning on a moral, ethical issue, which we're talking technology and don't need to get into. But that concerns me a lot, is that you're causing lazy brain.
Well, I can tell you, I agree with that in the sense that a lot of the people, writing articles out on LinkedIn, there's some of these are being written by Chat GPT, and that's kind of plagiarism, isn't it? I don't know.
It's like the calculator, right? I mean, you're supposed to show your work instead of just pressing the buttons, but.
Well, to be fair, and that's a good point, George, because, I took the CPA exam back in '83. And back then, they actually let us go in and take the exam with a calculator. Okay, so they would make the problems a lot harder because we had calculators. Okay, so it really did increase the problem level, so the solving. They didn't give us easy stuff because they said, you got a calculator, so you figure out how to use your tool as best you can so that you can solve bigger and more important problems. And I think maybe that's how we need to look at this. I do understand your point where the knowledge is all being consolidated in these, these giant mega technology companies. And there is a concern with that. It's like, is that going to be used against us because it's all in Google or it's all in Microsoft, because Microsoft smartly is saying, oh, OpenAI is something we need to kind of grab and take advantage of and get our hooks into. So no doubt about that. That's always a concern. But I believe that they'll make this open to everyone, and the people that are going to solve the problems are going to be SMBs, entrepreneurs.
And
It's
Google
always
just
a
released.
pleasure to meet another TI 85 guy too, when you speak of calculators.
I thought it's already a TI 87 now, and 85 is gone. So Google just announced that they've released their Chat GPT alternative, right? Their competitive solution in beta. They just released this week. So amazing how Microsoft's like, maybe we weren't far enough there. Let's just pay. Google's like, nope, here you go. We built something. So it'll be interesting to see how the landscape kind of competes there.
My understanding is with Chat GPT, it doesn't know anything before 2021. So that's, I don't know if it knows Biden's president.
Yeah, before 2021. I wonder what happened then.
No, that's what I heard.
Quick micro question on auto elevate. Still have clients wanting to do this, automatically without having to contact us. I mean, with Chat GPT, should we put that in the mix to see how they can auto elevate themselves without giving them access?
Well, that's a classic conundrum. It's like, well, we don't want you to elevate yourself because you're not technically savvy enough to elevate yourself. So, I mean, that's kind of like, yes, look, I think we put rules in. So, hey, once you get, hey, this DLL is the DLL for the new version of QuickBooks. Okay, let's just apply that to everyone in our customer base. So we don't have to stop them when the next person wants to upgrade to that version of QuickBooks. So from that standpoint, we do have some intelligence, but there's a puppeteer involved is saying yes. Somewhere along the line, one of us humans has to say yes. Does that answer the question?
Effectively, we're just waiting for, like, the whole point of that is to make sure that all it takes is the one click for things to go bad, right? Like, this is trying to prevent that one click, right? But
yeah. Well, look, I'm one of those people where I'm not afraid of technology. I don't think the matrix ever occurs personally. I just think there's always, now, there might be some CEO at Google or at Microsoft that's kind of telling us what's going on, but it's not some artificial intelligence.
Interesting. David, where do people go to find out more information on all things Cyberfox, what the program looks like, how MSPs, can adopt it or not, like get a demo, whatever it is? Is it just cyberfox.com?
Yeah, it's cyberfox.com. We got trials out there. You can take a trial if you want to talk to a representative. You can do that as well. But yeah, so just go there, and then we're on LinkedIn. We're all making the rounds at a lot of the trade shows. My phone number is area code 813-340-6219. I'm not great at answering the phone, but I do respond to all texts. 813-340-6219.
When was the last time somebody did that? Right? Is it like the guy that put it? What was it? The guy who was like, "Oh, I can't have my identity stolen." Then he put his social security number on the truck in Times Square. I don't know, but he put it out there, guys. If you want to text him, text him. Hey, maybe you have an idea, and maybe David might invest in it. You don't know.
Sure, maybe.
There it is.
I'd be worried about HAL 9000 calling David now that his number's out there.
Hey, that's why I love these. Like, we're live, right? There's no 3-second delay, right? We're just putting it all out there. But yep, it's out there. Now you know where to get a hold of them.
It's okay. I like people calling me if they're having any problems with any of the software that we provide for them.
Yep, no Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction here. Anyway, just had to throw that out there because we're going into the Super Bowl. So on the other side of this, right, this session was recorded. We're going to put it online at mspinitiative.com. Obviously, we stream to all the platforms. So you can always rewind, get David's phone number, text him. Otherwise, I am headed to Arizona for the Super Bowl. See, we'll still have one more session before then, right? Thursdays. But I'm definitely interested in hopefully a positive outcome for the city of Philadelphia and whoever is selling them all the grease that they use on their polls. I think they're just getting away with murder, but I digress. We'll see you back here on Thursday before the big game. I'm sure Keith Nelson will come ready to go. He's going to come and give me a hard time next week. Until then, guys, appreciate you for jumping on, David. We'll catch up and stay warm out there, guys.
All right. Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya.